Everyone wears a mask. The kinder they seem, the more carefully that mask was crafted. And if you're not paying close attention, you'll confuse charm for loyalty, politeness for respect, and manipulation for love. By the time their true face shows, you've already paid the price in trust, time, or peace of mind. But what if you could see through the act early? Not with anger, not with confrontation, but with quiet precision. In this video, you'll learn 7 Machiavellian tests, subtle psychological shifts that reveal a person's real intentions, inspired by the strategies of Niccolò Machiavelli and the insights of Carl Jung. These tests aren't about punishing others. They're about protecting yourself. They show you who someone truly is before they decide what you're worth. If you've ever felt used, misled, or emotionally drained by someone who seemed nice on the surface, this is your wake-up call. And if you want more tools to guard your peace and sharpen your judgment, hit like and subscribe for weekly Stoic strategies that cut through the noise. Let's begin. Number 1, give them a little power. Power doesn't change people, it reveals them. That's the first truth you must hold close if you want to see someone's real character. We often assume that power corrupts, but the Stoics, and later Machiavelli, believed something far more dangerous. They taught that power doesn't rot the soul, it simply strips away the need to pretend. When a person no longer depends on your approval, no longer fears your judgment, no longer needs to play nice to keep your favor, their mask slips. And what's left beneath that mask is the truth most people spend their lives trying to hide. This is why the first Machiavellian test is deceptively simple. Give someone a small amount of power, not enough to fully dominate you, just enough to tilt the balance slightly in their favor. Let them make a decision, take the lead, or feel a temporary upper hand, then step back and watch. Because what they do with that small advantage tells you everything about what they do with a greater one. You don't need to announce this. In fact, you shouldn't. No need for dramatic setups or confrontation. Your only job is to observe the shift. Does their tone change? Do they become more dismissive? Do they begin speaking over you, interrupting more, or assuming superiority in small but telling ways? Or do they remain composed, balanced, and fair, treating you with the same respect as before? Here's what Stoicism teaches us. Virtue is not reactive. It's revealed under pressure. The philosopher Epictetus warned that external conditions don't make the man, they reveal him. When someone is no longer dependent on your kindness or your attention, their true values show. Power doesn't awaken morality. It tests whether that morality ever existed. To make this real, look at the story of Leonardo da Vinci. In his early days, he was offered minor roles on larger projects, rarely given full control, but often entrusted with tasks of artistic precision. Many artists in his position used those moments to seek favor through flattery or to leverage shortcuts for status. Leonardo didn't. He applied intense care even to small commissions, letting the discipline of his work speak louder than his ambition. And eventually the powerful began to trust him with more. Not because he demanded it, but because he proved he could be trusted when no one was watching. His restraint with power became the very reason he earned it. Now contrast this with people in your life who, once granted a little influence, begin to show signs of ego. Maybe they talk more, listen less. Maybe they start advising you on things they barely understand. Maybe they expect you to adjust to their schedule now. These aren't minor annoyances, they're signals, subtle cracks in the foundation that show how they would treat you if you ever truly needed them, or if the power dynamic fully flipped. Machiavelli in The Prince warned that those who quickly grow bold with minor authority often grow ruthless when given real control, and the Stoics would nod in agreement, because power to them was not a trophy, it was a mirror. It shows who still leads with discipline and who begins to unravel once there are no boundaries. So here's your quiet move. Allow the people around you to feel powerful, just enough. Let them feel seen, give them a compliment, ask for their opinion. Let them lead a moment, not to flatter, but to study. Do they elevate the moment with humility, or do they twist it to assert themselves? This is not about trickery, it's about clarity. When you give someone power, you give them a stage. Some people will perform, others will reveal, and the rare few will stay grounded, because their values run deeper than their need to dominate. Let people show you who they are. Don't rush to explain away their behavior. Don't make excuses. Just sit in the front row, watch quietly and take notes. Because when someone no longer needs to be kind and chooses to be anyway, that's not weakness, that's character. Number 2, deny a small request. If you truly want to understand someone's nature, don't wait for a major crisis. Just say no to something small, not out of cruelty, not to provoke, but as a quiet test, because how someone reacts to a gentle boundary will reveal more about their character than any deep conversation or long history. At first glance, it seems minor. A friend asks for a favor, a colleague wants a quick shortcut, a partner makes a seemingly harmless request, and you, calmly, respectfully, say no. Not because you're selfish, not because you don't care, but simply because the request doesn't align with your time, your priorities, or your peace of mind. What happens next is no longer about the request, it's about them. A balanced, emotionally mature person will take the no with grace. They may be disappointed, but they won't guilt you, they won't lash out, they won't freeze you out or twist your words. But someone with hidden entitlement will reveal their agenda. The moment they feel denied, the mask they wear, the one of kindness, support, and understanding, starts to slip. This is the second Machiavellian test, the denial of a small favor. And it works because it breaks an invisible contract most people never admit exists. That contract says, if I've been good to you, you owe me. It's transactional, it's conditional. It's not about love, it's about leverage. And the moment you disrupt that pattern, even in the smallest way, their disappointment exposes their expectations, and their expectations expose their motives. The Stoics understood this dynamic deeply. Seneca wrote, "He who gives quickly gives doubly." But he also warned against giving when it compromises your integrity. He believed kindness should flow from virtue, not pressure, and so should refusal. Refusing someone, when done honestly and kindly, is not cruelty, it's clarity. This is where many people fold. They fear saying no, they fear being misunderstood, disliked, or pushed away. But Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, you are not responsible for what others say or think. You are responsible only for acting justly and with purpose. So when you deny a small request, you're not rejecting the person. You're simply choosing to honor your own alignment. That alone is a powerful filter. Let's look at Maya Angelou. She was deeply kind, but she never confused kindness with compliance. She had strong boundaries, and when she said no, she said it without apology. She once told Oprah, "I'm not a writer who teaches, I'm a teacher who writes." That principle applied to how she handled people too. Her no was a lesson. You can love someone, respect them, and still not meet every need they project onto you. Those who understood this stayed close. Those who didn't fell away. This test is not about pushing people away. It's about watching who was never really with you. When you deny someone a small thing, a ride, a favor, a shortcut, and they respond with coldness, sarcasm, or withdrawal, what they're really saying is, I liked you better when you served me. That's not love, that's utility. And here's the deeper truth. If someone can't handle a soft boundary, They will absolutely collapse when you set a firm one. This is why it's better to know early, before your generosity becomes their habit and their entitlement becomes your burden. So here's the quiet strategy. The next time someone asks for something small and your gut says no, honor it, say no kindly, say it clearly, and then observe. Watch their eyes, listen to the tone of their silence, feel how the room changes. Do they remain connected or do they retreat into quiet punishment? That moment between your no and their reaction is where truth lives. And in that truth, you find freedom, because once you learn how people respond when they don't get their way, you stop building relationships on illusion and start building a life on discernment. Remember, saying no doesn't make you cruel, it makes you clear. And clarity is the beginning of wisdom. Number 3, introduce a pause. Silence is not just the absence of sound, it's the collapse of control. And if you want to know who truly respects you, introduce silence into the equation. Don't answer a message right away. Don't respond instantly to a question. Let the moment stretch just a little longer than usual. Not to punish, not to play games, but to observe. Because what rises in the silence will tell you more about a person than what they say when everything feels easy. This third Machiavellian test reveals how deeply someone needs to control the rhythm of your attention. And while it might sound harmless, this is one of the most effective ways to detect subtle entitlement, insecurity, or emotional manipulation. The Stoics knew this. They understood that reaction often exposes more than intention, and when someone can't tolerate a pause, they often weren't connecting with you to begin with, but with the emotional certainty you gave them. Imagine this. You delay your reply by an hour, or you take a quiet breath before answering a question. You break the rhythm they're used to. Suddenly, they feel uncertain. Some people will stay calm, grounded, respectful. Others will escalate, texting again with urgency, following up with passive-aggressive remarks, or accusing you of being distant. What they're really saying is, "You're not playing the role I expected, and that threatens me." The Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are pained by any external thing, it is not this thing that disturbs you, but your judgment of it." This test places someone's judgment on display. A pause, something neutral, is reinterpreted as rejection or betrayal. That's not about you. That's about their mind's demand for control and certainty. This demand often shows up quietly. You'll notice it in how quickly they need closure, how much they need to feel in sync, how they treat delayed responses as personal attacks. But true security, Stoic security, has no urgency to possess. It allows others to breathe, to pause, to retreat. It doesn't chase every silence with suspicion. It simply waits, and in waiting, it reveals its depth. Now consider Steve Jobs, not for his technology, but for his use of silence in conversations. Jobs was known for letting moments hang. He didn't rush to fill the air. He allowed space, and in that space, people revealed themselves. How confident they were in uncertainty, how grounded they were without constant validation. He didn't use silence to intimidate, but to observe, because silence is a mirror. In your relationships, the same principle applies. If someone truly values you, they'll allow you space. They won't panic when you pause. They won't assume malice where none exists. But if their connection to you is based on control, your silence becomes unbearable to them. That's how you know. This test is especially useful in modern communication. Texting, social media, even voice messages. When you don't respond immediately, some people will reveal their core. They might double text, call, or fill the silence with assumptions. The more extreme the reaction, the more they've built their emotional regulation on your availability and instant compliance. But the Stoic doesn't live to be constantly reachable, Epictetus reminded us. If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. That includes the compulsion to explain your silence. You owe no one immediate access to your presence. Your time is yours. Your energy is sacred. And the ones who respect you will never make you feel guilty for protecting both. So here's your quiet strategy. Let silence speak. When someone pressures you for an answer, delay with grace. When the tempo of a conversation feels rushed, slow it down. Then simply observe who leans in with patience and who collapses into control. Because anyone can smile when the rhythm suits them, but only the secure remain kind when you stop dancing to their beat. And those are the people who deserve to stay in your life. The pause doesn't just test their patience, it reveals the depth of their presence. Number 4, bring in a third person. You'll never truly know the strength of a connection until you introduce a third presence, a new voice, a new energy, a new option. This fourth Machiavellian test is subtle, yet revealing. It places no accusation, issues no direct challenge. You simply widen the room, invite another soul into the space, and observe what shifts. What you're watching for is the integrity of the bond. Do they remain present with you, or do they pivot their energy, competing for attention, undermining your presence, or shifting their charm toward the new arrival? The answer reveals something vital, whether their connection to you was genuine or merely convenient. The Stoics understood that comparison is the birthplace of suffering. Epictetus warned, "It is not things that disturb us, but our judgment about things." So what happens when someone you trust feels disturbed not by what's said, but by who else is there to hear it? That disturbance isn't random, it's diagnostic. In the presence of another, our judgments surface, and in their reaction, so do theirs. Introducing a third person is like dropping a stone into still water. You're not causing conflict, but you're disturbing the surface just enough to watch where the ripples go. And those ripples will show you everything. Imagine you're in a conversation with someone who's warm, attentive, engaging, but then another person joins the circle. Do they include the newcomer gracefully, or do they subtly shift away from you? Do they become louder, more performative, more strategic with their words? Or do they grow cold, annoyed at the divided attention, as if your value depended on exclusivity? This test cuts straight through to the core of transactional relationships, because those who connect with you only when they have your full gaze are not in love with you. They're in love with how you make them feel, and when a new presence enters the room, their internal scoreboard turns on. They start calculating who's getting more attention, who's winning the invisible contest. That's not intimacy, that's performance. Look at the example of Carl Jung. When Jung broke from Freud, it wasn't because of hatred, it was because Jung saw that Freud's loyalty wasn't rooted in truth. It was rooted in control. When Jung brought in ideas and perspectives that didn't fit Freud's system, the relationship soured. The third presence, new thought, exposed what the bond was built on. Not mutual respect, but hierarchy. That's the power of this test. You don't need to argue. You don't need to probe. You simply observe how the energy flows when the dynamic expands. The third person doesn't have to be a rival, just a presence. Their only job is to disturb the equilibrium slightly, enough to test what was real and what was merely routine. True relationships, the ones built on value rather than validation, remain grounded even in a crowd. You can introduce someone new, and the person beside you doesn't flinch. They don't compete. They don't shrink. They include, because they don't fear being replaced. Their sense of connection isn't rooted in exclusivity, it's rooted in presence. And the Stoics would tell you, this kind of calm is rare, because most people don't love, they possess. Most people don't connect, they consume. And when you introduce a third presence, the possessors will become obvious. Their grip tightens, their tone shifts, their insecurities surface. Not because you've done anything wrong, but because their role was never meant to be shared. It was meant to control. So here's your quiet strategy. When you're unsure about someone's intentions, invite a third person into the space. Not as a trap, but as a mirror. Watch how they handle the new flow of energy. Do they remain gracious? Or do they reposition themselves? Do they remain connected to you? Or only to your attention? Because anyone can be kind in private, but only those who are secure will still honor you in public. When others are watching, when options appear, when the dynamic expands. This test doesn't reveal who talks the most. It reveals who stays loyal to presence, and that's who you build with. Number 5, reverse the roles. Every relationship, friendship, romance, work dynamic, eventually falls into a rhythm. One person listens more, one initiates, one supports, one leads. And while routines can feel safe, they can also become traps. Because the longer you stay in a fixed role, the more invisible your identity becomes to the person who benefits from that role. This 5th Machiavellian test is about shifting that rhythm, not with conflict, not with accusation, but with subtle reversal. If you're always the listener, speak more. If you're always the planner, stop initiating. If you're the emotional anchor, let yourself be vulnerable. Watch what happens when you stop playing the part they've grown comfortable with. What you'll see is not just their surprise, but their values. The Stoics taught that character isn't revealed by agreement. It's revealed by friction, Epictetus said. If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. In other words, growth often comes through dissonance. So when you break a familiar pattern and they don't know how to respond, that discomfort is information. It tells you whether they respected you or merely relied on you. Many people think they care about you, but in reality, they care about the function you serve in their life. This test unmasks that illusion because the moment you stop performing your usual role, the mask they wear will slip, the warmth becomes cold, the energy shifts, the absence of your old self creates confusion, even resentment. They didn't love you, they depended on a version of you that made their world easier. This isn't about testing loyalty through hardship, it's about revealing the nature of conditional love. Because many relationships function on unspoken agreements. You support me emotionally and I admire you. You listen to my problems and I validate your worth. But the moment you reverse that flow, when you need support, attention, care, some people vanish, not out of malice, but out of limitation. Imagine someone who always comes to you with their burdens. Day after day, they vent, they ask for advice, they lean on you. But one day you express your own pain, gently, honestly, and they fall silent. Or worse, they change the subject. That's not just neglect, that's an emotional imbalance. It means your presence was appreciated, but your humanity was not. The Stoics were clear. One-sided virtue is not sustainable, Marcus Aurelius wrote. Don't imagine that something is good for you if it makes you lose your self-respect. And staying in a role that erodes your dignity may feel noble, but it's not wise. The wise person doesn't serve endlessly out of fear. They serve from strength, and they watch what happens when they stop. Who remains? Who retreats? Who resents the change? Eleanor Roosevelt is a living example of this test in action. Known for her diplomacy and tireless activism, she was often seen as the backstage support during her husband's presidency. But behind the scenes, she began to reverse that role. She wrote, she spoke, she challenged norms and led with her own voice. And not everyone welcomed that shift. But those who respected her didn't just tolerate her transformation, they celebrated it. That's the power of this test. When you reverse the roles, you don't just ask for equality. You reveal who can handle the full weight of your being. You give people the opportunity to meet the whole version of you, not just the curated service-oriented self, and that clarity is priceless. So here's your quiet strategy. Pull back from the part you always play. If you're the fixer, stay silent once. If you're the chaser, stop reaching out. If you're the one who absorbs pain, try sharing yours. If you always say yes, try a gentle no. And then, observe. Do they step forward or do they freeze? Do they welcome the shift or subtly punish you for changing? This isn't about games, it's about balance. It's about understanding whether the dynamic was real or just rehearsed, because anyone can adore you when you're useful. But only those with depth will remain when you become honest, vulnerable, equal. Reversing the role isn't rejection, it's revelation. And what it reveals is whether the relationship is rooted in performance or in presence. Number 6, share a controlled vulnerability. Trust is not built in grand gestures. It's built in moments of quiet exposure. When you reveal a small personal truth, a fear, a doubt, a moment of shame, you offer someone a glimpse behind your armor, and how they respond to that glimpse will tell you everything about their moral compass. This 6th Machiavellian test is not about bearing your soul, it's about sharing one piece of it. Deliberately, strategically. You're not venting, you're not oversharing, you're observing. You offer a thread of vulnerability and see what they do with it. Because here's the truth. People's relationship with your weakness reveals their character. The secure will meet your openness with care. The untrustworthy will weaponize it, if not now, then eventually. And the emotionally immature will simply ignore it, because your depth makes them uncomfortable. The Stoics were not opposed to vulnerability. They simply believed it must be chosen, not forced. Seneca wrote, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." Sharing a wound, however small, is a form of voluntary adversity. It allows you to test not only the strength of another person's empathy, but the strength of your own judgment. Let's make this concrete. You're in a conversation with someone who seems supportive. You mention something real, not devastating but honest. Maybe you admit you've been feeling a bit off lately. Maybe you talk about an insecurity from your past, something you don't broadcast to everyone. Then you wait. Do they lean in with compassion or shift the topic awkwardly? Do they offer space or do they try to fix it just to escape it? Do they revisit it later, showing they remembered? Or do they treat it like an inconvenience, a glitch in your otherwise perfect image? More importantly, do they hold it with care or do they bring it up again later? Not to understand you, but to score a point. Many people pretend to want authenticity, but when faced with real emotional texture, they shut down. They like the idea of vulnerability, but not the responsibility it brings. They want your strength, your usefulness, your consistency, but not the version of you that trembles, doubts, or asks for help. And this is why you don't test this recklessly. You share a controlled vulnerability, something true but measured, a detail you would not give a stranger, but not one that would wreck you if betrayed. You don't give them your whole story, you give them one page, and watch how they hold it. Consider the example of Alan Watts, the philosopher known for translating Eastern thought for the Western mind. Watts often spoke about his own struggles with meaning, identity, and even addiction. But he never shared to be pitied, he shared to connect. And in doing so, he drew people in without making them responsible for his healing. That's the balance. Honesty without expectation, openness without dependence. Stoicism teaches the same. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations not to impress others, but to reveal his inner conflicts, his pride, his anger, his fatigue. He wasn't seeking applause. He was practicing integrity. And that's what this test is about. Integrity under observation. You are not asking them to save you. You are watching to see if they respect what you reveal. Because when someone mishandles even a small piece of your pain, it's a sign. When they mock it later, or use it in an argument, or gossip about it when you're not around, that's not just a red flag. That's a full diagnosis. And once seen, it cannot be unseen. So here's your quiet strategy. Choose someone you're unsure about. Share one real thing, a fear, a regret, a confusion, and then watch. Not what they say immediately, but what they say later. Do they return to it with curiosity or with criticism? Do they hold your softness with respect, or do they treat it as leverage? This test reveals who is safe and who is simply pretending to be. It separates those who want to see you from those who only want to use you. And that clarity, once earned, should never be forgotten. Number 7, temporarily withdraw the final absence. If you want to know how much you matter to someone, disappear briefly and watch. This final test is the most revealing because it removes the performance, it creates silence, and in that silence you see the truth. The people who need you for your energy will panic. The ones who only call when they want something will vanish. The ones who respect you will notice your absence with quiet concern. They won't chase or demand, but they won't forget either. Their attention lingers even when you retreat. The genuine ones may check in. Not because they're needy, but because they value presence, not just convenience. This Machiavellian test is not about punishing others. It's about liberating yourself from the illusion of connection, because when you're constantly present, constantly giving, you can't see the full shape of the relationship. You're inside the noise, but when you step away, you create space, and in that space, motives surface. The Stoics practice this, not by ghosting, but through intentional solitude. Marcus Aurelius would retreat to write, not to escape the world, but to understand it. He knew that constant interaction clouds judgment, and Epictetus warned against becoming the slave of circumstance, reminding us that clarity often requires stillness. So here's how the test works. You pause, you stop texting first, you stop offering help, you disappear, not forever, not in anger, but with intention. You give the other person a chance to act without your presence driving the script. Then you observe. Do they reach out, not out of panic, but out of care? Do they notice your absence or treat it like relief? Do they try to understand or assume the worst? Sometimes silence reveals the quiet cruelty of indifference. Other times it uncovers the beauty of real connection. Those rare people who don't need you to perform to stay close. That's the essence of this test. It exposes who's with you for your being, not just your benefits. This isn't about manipulation, it's about contrast. A person's true character isn't revealed by how they act when you're giving. It's revealed by how they act when you're still, when you stop feeding them attention, affirmation, or energy. Think of Carl Jung. When he distanced himself from Freud, it wasn't out of hostility, it was necessity. He needed space to find his own voice. And in that absence, the nature of the relationship was revealed. What once seemed like connection showed itself as control. You're allowed to step back. You're allowed to rest your energy and observe. In doing so, you don't lose people. You lose illusions. You don't burn bridges. You simply stop walking toward the ones that never led to anything real. Here's what Stoicism teaches. Tranquility is the reward of emotional independence if your peace depends on another's attention. You're not free, but when you can step back without bitterness, without needing to be chased, you've reclaimed yourself. You've stopped asking others to prove your worth and begun standing in it. So run this test gently. Take 3 days, take a week. Step back from the people you're unsure about. Don't explain. Don't justify. Just disappear with grace. Then see who reaches. See who respects the pause. see who fades, and most importantly, see who returns with sincerity. The results may sting, but they will set you free, because you'll finally see who was there for you and who was only there for what they could take. You'll stop mistaking attention for care and habit for love. You'll see with clean eyes. Absence doesn't just test relationships, it defines them. Anyone can stay when you're useful, but only the real ones stay when you're quiet, when your light dims, when you're no longer the source of distraction or praise. And here's the Stoic truth. If someone forgets you that easily, let them. Your value was never meant to be proven through constant effort. Sometimes the strongest move is simply to stop trying and see who notices. So now you know 7 quiet ways to uncover someone's truth without ever raising your voice. No accusations, no drama, just precision, because life isn't about controlling people. It's about understanding who they are when no one is watching. These tests are not weapons, they're mirrors. They don't punish others. They reveal reality. And once you see it, you can finally stop negotiating your worth. You don't have to guess who's real. You'll know. And when you know, you get your energy back, your time, your clarity. The Stoics didn't seek truth to hurt others. They sought it to live well. And that's your path now. Quiet observation, calm detachment, ruthless clarity. If this video gave you that clarity, even just a little, like it, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to see through the mask. The strongest people are not loud. They're observant, stay quiet, stay sharp, and stay free.